let's go on to what Labour are going to do to us, because most of it is going to be, of course, utterly terrible. Some of it isn't bad, though. So recently, Labour set out their agenda in the King's speech. For anyone who doesn't know, the King is given a script to read by the current ruling government and says, my government will do this. And so 35 bills were announced in the King's speech. But as the Telegraph points out, there are no clues about tax rises or spending cuts. Didn't mention any numbers. Interesting. Didn't mention any numbers about immigration either, but we'll get to that in a minute. Responsibility, it appears, designed to draw more attention to the failures of Liz Truss than fixing problems that are going to come up again. Interesting. So what was absent, I think, was interesting, was votes for 16-year-olds. Now, I think much has been made of the Zoomers going based. If you look at the actual breakdown, it's only about 8% of them. They're just very loud on social media. But obviously, this is something that's bothered Keir Starmer, I guess. And that wasn't in it.
After Germany, I think they don't want to even whatever our polls show, they don't want to risk it.
I think all parties of all political persuasions do that thing of promising stuff in order to get into power, and then when they get into power, just drop it. So I think they all do it. But I feel like leftist parties, or particularly sort of more centrist leftist parties, are the worst for it. If you get a real hardline commie, someone like Hugo Chavez or something, they actually do what they promise they're going to do.
Yeah.
But when
and
you
the country collapses, yes.
And when you get a wishy-washy lefty like Labour, they're sort of the worst for it, I feel, often, it seems in my experience. But yeah, no, so that's great. Yeah, don't give 16 and 17-year-olds a vote. If anything, raise the voting age. If anything.
Yeah. 35 years old, property owning, white man.
Yeah, male.
Obviously, that's a joke.
Is it? No, you're sorry.
One thing that also was left out was forcing members of the House of Lords to retire at the age of 80, which, I mean, I'm not even that bothered about that, to be honest. How much...
Life peers or hereditary peers or both?
Well, just the life peers, but they will remove hereditary peers instantly.
Brilliant.
So the House of Lords is going...
sarcastic there.
The House of Lords is going to be filled with Labour donors. So it's going to be a crony house.
Like when he reads that before he has to go out and actually read it out loud, does Charles read that and start sweating?
Right, yeah.
Because that's a tradition that goes back centuries.
Well, that's the question, isn't it? So what Charles is doing is presiding over the dismantling of his own kingdom. Right? The republicization of his own constitutional kingdom. And so it's like, right, there's something quite dark about it, really, that he's got no choice but to do this, or feels he has no choice. I mean, technically, he has actually got all the power. He could do whatever he wanted.
Here's the thing I'll say about hereditary peers that perhaps Americans don't know, or other countries in the world don't have such a thing. Okay, sort of, when you look at it objectively, it is inherently unfair. It is, right, that somebody's... Yeah, right. But that's the point. Yeah, it's inherently unfair, but it's one of our traditions. It served us really well.
Yeah.
And it's actually not anywhere near as bad as just packing it with Lib Dem donors or whatever. Yeah. But the thing is, the people that hate it the most are sort of commie globalist traitor types.
Which we'll get to in a minute.
So the thing is, it's like, not that I love the concept of hereditary peerage, it's that all the worst people despise it more.
Yeah, and on that same note, it's not that replacing it with only people who've been granted peerages by by Starmer or whoever is going to be a more fair system. Like you mentioned, it'll just mean that it will fill up instead with people who can afford to give the most money to Labour, which is also unfair to the little man if you're really concerned about Mr. Little over here.
It'll be crony capitalists.
Like
Literally, it'll be a plutocracy.
Personally, I'm a lukewarm monarchist. I don't particularly like Prince Charles at all. But the concept King Charles, sorry. Yeah. But the concept of monarchy, I've done so much content about the monarchy. Obviously, I'm fascinated by it. It's a really important part of our history and heritage. We're a constitutional monarchy, so it's not like the monarch really has anything to do with the levers of power or anything. But the fact that people like Clive Lewis
I was going to bring Clive Lewis
or whatever want to annihilate it, well, then I'm for it. Then.
Yeah, exactly. I'm totally for it. And what the reason was recently when the MPs were sworn in, and Clive Lewis was like, "I want to pledge allegiance to the people of my constituency." Oh, this, blah blah blah. I hate the monarchy, basically. And he was forced to bend the knee and retake his pledge properly, sensibly, like he ought. And making leftists bend the knee, I'm totally in favour of that. So yeah, I'm a bit of a royalist in that regard, because the leftists don't want it. No, I'm in favour of it, because it actually doesn't affect my life at all in any way, shape or form. And it's historic, as you said. It's proper that England
Yeah.
is a kingdom.
Yeah.
We always have been, we always should be.
Having a constitutional monarchy like after the revolution, or after the Civil War and after the Glorious Revolution and stuff, that served us really quite well.
Yes. And another thing as well, I've met a bunch of the lords. They're not bad chaps. The ones that I met seem really decent and actually concerned. I mean, I met the sort of based ones, but we're interested in the future of the country, and there is something to be said for having people who own some of the country. Okay, you're the Duke of Buckinghamshire or something like that, the Earl of wherever. Okay, you at least
have a vested interest.
Yeah, you have a feeling of possession of the land, right? So you're concerned about what happens to it and the people who live in it. And because you can't be voted out, you're not worried about the democratic rigmarole of every 4 or 5 years, I've got to persuade constituents now. No, you can focus on the long game. You can think in long terms about the future health of the civilization. So I think there is actually an advantage to the lords that is not being given due credit.
Well, here's another advantage as well to any kind of monarchical system, which is that despite what you would be told when you're learning about political theory and such in schools, it's actually much easier to hold to account than whatever gigantic blob of managerial bureaucracy that we have right now. If you know that there's a king and he's in charge, and everybody beneath him are his minions of one form or another, and you can actually go and say, well, this thing's gone wrong, so it's this lord's fault, it's the king's fault, it's this person's fault. And you can't do that with Whitehall. What happens with Whitehall? It all goes on in offices and endless meetings behind closed doors that we have absolutely no control over. They would like you to believe that we do because we have the democratic system, whereas that's a smokescreen.
Now, that's a great point. You can at least name the person in charge, right? And this is the problem with the EU bureaucracy. Obviously, a huge amount goes on with whatever they have for the civil service there, but you couldn't name a single person who's responsible for any of these things. You can't name who's responsible for the legislation. You can't name who's responsible for the enforcement.
A classic example, the Magna Carta. What happened? Yeah. The king was misbehaving, so all the lords got all together and decided to put him on his knees and say, we're going to hold you accountable for this.
Sign this
right now.
Check out the Epochs episodes where we go into the Magna Carta in detail. So just to be clear, in Britain, we aren't citizens. We are subjects of the crown. In America, you're a citizen because it's a republic. In France, you're a citizen because it's a republic. We're not a republic. But the king is not a personal monarchy. It's not an absolute monarchy. They have very, very little power. In fact, the government of the day, Keir Starmer or whoever, says, read out our agenda and get every single word exactly right. That's how little power our monarch has.
And to be honest with you, I would kind of prefer it if he would turn around and say, you know what, I'm here to protect the hereditary rights of Englishmen, actually. So maybe I won't do some of the things that you're asking.
Yeah, but
my
he's a
government
globalist.
I know. Anyway, moving on. So Keir Starmer is actually probably going to smash the criminal gangs. Now, he wrote an article in The Sun. Fair enough. I have to say, he writes worse than ChatGPT. Like, he writes in these weird single sentences. I mean,
So he writes like he talks then.
Yeah. Form a paragraph.
Horribly and boring.
Yeah, exactly. It's incredibly boring and very low grade. But he is going to bring about this border security command, which is going to shut down gang smuggling routes and dismantles their networks. I think he probably will do that, actually. So fair enough.
You got word from Tone. Up on high,
well, it's
that will undercut reform.
No, it's not just that. I mean, yeah, he definitely did get that. But it's not just that. Keir Starmer is the letter of the law legalistic bureaucrat. Right? He was a lawyer. He
ran the CPS, didn't he?
Exactly. Right. So
there were a few laws that he wasn't applying to certain people.
But this sort of thing is totally off the grid, right? No, the person smuggling, drug smuggling, criminal gangs, Keir Starmer will have absolutely no problem destroying them because not only are what they're doing intrinsically bad, but they're also defying the letter of the law. Whereas opening the borders and bringing in millions of people legally, totally fine. It's done by the letter of the law. That's the way Keir Starmer looks at things.
So he might stop the boats, but you'll still get millions more people flooding our towns.
They'll still be legally here and not illegally here. So
and then Dilly Hussein can say you've got no right to complain about it.
Exactly. And in fact, the Border Force has already begun just simply taking migrants back to France. This could have been done at any time. And apparently they came out and said, this isn't a change of policy. I said, what do you mean this wasn't a change of policy? You didn't do this under the Conservatives. So why are you suddenly able to do it now? And what it is that the Labour Party have the keys to the kingdom. They are part of the liberal managerial global order, and therefore the civil service and all the institutions of state just cooperate. whereas they didn't cooperate with the Conservatives because the Conservatives are idiots.
The senior civil servants then. So let's assume Priti Patel and Suella Braverman did ask them to do this. If that is the case, and they just simply refused to.
Yeah.
If that is the case, which I'm not even entirely convinced of, but let's say it is, then those senior civil servants, the buck stops with them. They're guilty of that crime then.
You would think, but Suella Braverman at a NatCon speech said, well, everyone's blaming the blob or the institutions, and that's not really true. I was prevented from doing my job by Sunak. Sunak expressly, she calls him out expressly saying he intervened in her plans to do exactly this sort of thing. So, no, it was the traitorous nature of the Conservative Party that got in the way.
Well, isn't it that senior civil servants can only be removed by the Prime Minister?
Yes.
Yeah, so Sunak refused to do that.
Sunak was the person blocking it. She called him out by name. She said, look, the institutions were, of course, against us, but we were the government. We could have done something if we wanted. Sunak expressly interceded there.
She remained Home Secretary for months under him, though.
Yeah. But there we go. At least she ended up calling it out eventually. But yeah, so...
I still love her speech, which was, but I get sub. I suck. I failed. Support me.
Yeah.
That was the speech in sum.
She is unfortunately the best the Conservatives have. I met her as well at NatCon. She seemed like a really nice person, and she does seem on side. She's just a part of the system, right? And so she's operating within those limits. But yeah, so 70 migrants were caught crossing Monday. So Border Force just returned to France. Shows it is possible. We should just be doing that intrinsically, obviously. But anyway, thousands of prisoners are going to be released. So no. Oh, by the way, on this, no word of what they're actually going to do with the illegals that have already come across under the Conservative tenure. There have been rumours and mutterings of, well, we're going to get them processed as soon as possible. What that probably means is just letting them out. Just letting them go. Just giving them right to stay.
Stamp.
Exactly. We're just going to get them all stamped here, and then, because they've abandoned the Rwanda plan, which was stupid anyway. But that means
we're not getting our money back on that
can we
one.
get a rebate from the Rwanda government?
No. Instantly, we gave Sunak gave £490 million to Macron over this, and Macron just let them keep coming. We gave 250 million, something like that, to Rwanda. We're not going to get a refund for that. And Starmer just comes in and just like, right, no, they're just going to go back. Okay, fine, at least that can be done.
One French cop stabbed one dinghy one time.
Yeah.
Popping it. That cost us 400 odd million pounds, did it?
Yeah, so this is the fast track plans to allow 90,000 migrants planned for deportation to Rwanda to claim asylum in the UK. Of course they are. Anyway, moving on, because we're running out of time. There's so much to cover. Thousands of prisoners are going to be released in September because the Conservatives used to just let them out after they'd served 50% of their sentence, but now they're going to let them out when they've served 40% of their sentence because there's going to be a total breakdown of law and order if we don't release everyone from the prisons. Really, that's weird, because I would have thought it'd be the opposite.
Yeah, the exact opposite.
Yeah, but what do I know? Anyway, the prison population of the UK, I went and looked it up. You're going to like this, Bo, you're going to love this. So on page 4, it is. Let me get down to page 4, because there's a nice little graph where you can see that can we make that a bit bigger, please, Jack? Just so it's a bit more clear. But you can see in about 1997, something happened. The prison population spikes.
Didn't really affect Scotland as much, did it?
No, but it still went up.
It still went up, but...
In England and Wales, though, in the late 90s, something happened.
Must have been those
Some Labour MPs did something.
Yeah.
No, I think it must have been those Labour tough on crime policies. But, that must have been it.
Quite possibly, but we do have the numbers. Foreign nationals make up 12% of the prison population. And people of ethnic minorities make up 27% of the prison population, compared to the 18% of the general population. So the question is, why are they here? Why are we housing foreigners in our prisons disproportionately? Well, that's a great question. The Labour Party are like, you know what, that's a good point. We do need to save money. So actually, Labour are going to deport the foreign criminals. The Conservatives could have done this. They could have done. They had 14 years.
All of this, I just want to say, I'll wait to see before it happens.
Sure, but I think that they probably will do.
Like smashing the boat gangs. Great, you're saying it, but the Tories said it. Wow. Wait till it actually happens. Then I will give credit where it's due.
The Tories didn't even say it, though. They didn't say they were going to smash the boat gangs. They said they were going to stop the boats. And the Tories are the ones who allowed so many foreign criminals to take up so much space in our prisons. This is 10,422 foreign nationals in jail, Personally, I'm in favour of bringing back scourging. Right. So I just think that if you're a foreign national, you commit a crime in Britain, you should be flogged and deported immediately. Right. I don't think that's unreasonable. But yeah, so and this is 12% of all prisoners, which is costing the taxpayer nearly £500 million a year. Again, why didn't the Conservatives do this?
Point of contention. Would that be a public flogging?
Well, yeah.
Perhaps in Marble Arch, somewhere like that.
I think that anyone who's flogged for committing a crime, a violent crime, should be flogged in public, obviously.
And there are still many market towns across the country still have public stocks that are out and available in public squares. I mean, there's no reason we can't use them.
Yeah. So generally on immigration, though, Labour have been very cagey about the numbers, as in they haven't given us any numbers. They've got an immigration policy in their manifesto. They've got 3 basic points, which are we're going to boost Britain's skills. So they're going to bring in people to fill skill gaps. They're going to reform the points-based immigration system. Not sure how that's going to work. And they're going to ban hiring from overseas for employers and recruitment agencies who break employment law. But they're not giving any numbers, any targets, or anything like that. So who knows? I think the legal immigration is still going to be through the roof. And so obviously all these legal migrants have to live somewhere. Therefore, boom, mandatory housing targets. That's right. We're going to house all of these legal migrants all over the green belt. Wonderful. One of our nice green sunlit areas.
Look at that feckless pair right there.
I know.
Jesus Christ. That fills me with confidence. But I don't know about you.
In a way, though, I am kind of pleased that we finally have a government that actually accurately represents Britain, right? Incompetent middle managers and council estate slags. Labour Party, right? They are actually something that is genuinely, authentically British. So there is something to be happy about that.
Lol, you get what you voted for. Lol, vote harder next time. Lol.
Yep. Anyway,
I mean, what was it? Only 20% of the electorate actually voted for them in the first place. Overwhelming majority. Democracy works.
And what they promised in the last couple of screens you put up, where it's their immigration policy, they're going to do this and that. I just simply don't believe them.
Oh, they're not going to reduce numbers.
I just simply don't believe it.
They'll reduce the illegals. They won't reduce the legals. And it's literally a factor of 10 to 1, the problem. So anyway. But, right, so they're going to build houses. They're going to make you build houses. Mandatory housing targets. So that means that if they're going to, house a load of new foreigners in your area, you will lose the right to block house building. Literally, no, we're just going to say you can't object to us building these houses there. You've got no choice, because Starmer is going to govern the country like he governed his party, like Stalin. He's genuinely like that. Moreover, they're going to force the landowners to sell the land if they don't agree to it voluntarily, and they're going to make sure they don't get, quote, excessive payouts. So they're probably going to screw them over a bit. And just to be clear, this is what the green areas there, that's where they're going to be building. It's like, right, okay, so the countryside. Nice.
In the suburbs around the biggest urban areas.
So just
the rural areas around the biggest urban areas.
Yeah, more urban sprawl. It's just going to be concreted over to house foreigners.
You can see that green belt is probably one of the only things that stops Manchester and Preston and other large cities from all being joined into some gigantic megatropolis dystopian nightmare in the northwest.
They will have Britain like Coruscant, where it's just the whole area is covered with cityscape.
Yeah, and Labour is going to make it mandatory. They're going to force you to sell your land, and they're going to stop locals from being able to block it. Lovely. So anyway, next on the list is banning the absurd ban on onshore wind farms. Sorry, do you not want your entire country to look like Cybertron, covered in engineered pylons and windmills? Well, too bad. That's going to happen, which, of course, quote, delights environmentalists and energy experts. Energy experts would be advocating for nuclear.
Yeah.
Anyone knows this.
Half a dozen nuclear power stations, job done.
Yeah. What about the voting public?
Well, they've been told that they don't have a say. It's overridden already.
I thought that, lol, we voted for this, though, lol.
Yeah. Well, the Green Party, incidentally, are the ones coming out against this, actually, because as one local MP pointed out, the pylons are ugly and people don't like it. They don't want this sort of thing.
A shockingly sensible statement.
It is, but then Miliband is in the Parliament being like, well, hang on a second. You want green energy, but you don't want the infrastructure to support green energy. Aren't you a hypocrite? It's like, brilliant, brilliant, amazing. Lee Anderson has assess that this will cost you something like £8.5 billion for this GB energy company.
To see Ed Miliband at the dispatch box on the government side of the house actually turns my stomach.
Yeah, it's gross. But anyway,
just to remember that Ed Miliband isn't even English.
Well, I mean, he eats bacon sandwiches, so.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Kind of eats.
Anyway, moving on, Labour are going to devolve power to the devolution deserts in England. What good is that, though, if you're just going to override them from the central government? Devolve power, okay, we don't want the energy pylons or new houses built here. Too bad. Enjoy your devolved power, chumps. Doesn't matter in any way, shape, or form. It's going to give new powers to mayors and combined authorities to do really petty things, where the central government is just going to override them completely.
Just anything to weaken Westminster. Starkey talks about it, how one of Blair's main, in a meta sense, things he did was to destroy the power of Parliament.
Yeah.
With all sorts of devolution and quangos and all sorts of things. Just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Just keep doing it. It's terrible. It's been a disaster for our country, but just keep doing it. Go further with that. I mean, they're mad.
Just the thing on the Ed Miliband thing. I don't know why that's surprising, because I was like, well, lots of people in our parliament aren't English. Like, loads of them.
Well,
but the Conservative Party.
Exactly, and you wonder why that none of them have any care for our history, our culture, or destroying half of the countryside. To
be fair, Miliband's probably more integrated than most of the people in the parliament these days. So I think he's probably...
Which is why he's eagerly destroying the countryside.
No, he's just an idiot. But I don't think Ed Miliband feeling foreign is the issue, really. I mean, there definitely are lots of people in the parliament who do feel foreign. I just don't think Miliband's one of them. Anyway, so Starmer's also going to hand powers to unions, workers, and tenants in the King's Speech. So if you are an enterprising fellow in the United Kingdom, well, your life is going to be made a lot more difficult. And this is the particular one as one of those enterprising fellows, the sort of person who starts a small business, starts employing people. Oh yeah, he's also going to keep the ban on cigarette sales, which is like, okay, cringe. Sorry, I'm trying to get through this as much as possible, but later we're going to ruin everything. The VAT on private school fees. This is atrocious because they all seem to think... So what they're going to do is make sure that private schools now have to pay VAT. Now, the reason that you don't have private schools paying VAT is to make it affordable for the aspiring middle class to give their children an excellent education, an education that is better than what a state school can provide. And this is an example of just one of the opinions you get on it. Well, I've got no sympathy. I can't believe all these rich people. It's like, no, you're mistaking that not all private schools are Eton, actually, right? The only people that this doesn't affect are, in fact, the super rich, because when you're a multi-millionaire or a billionaire, you can afford to pay the VAT rise. When you say someone like myself, who isn't even earning 6 figures a year or 7 figures a year, no, I'm not even earning 6 figures a year, right? But I send my children to a private school, you're affecting me. You're affecting my kids and their education. It's not like my kids come from a billionaire background.
Classic leftist policy, the politics 100%. Of resentment.
100%.
That you're a kulak.
Yep, exactly.
You've got a little bit of money, so you're the enemy now. You're the class enemy now.
100%. That's exactly what this is. And of course, lots of private schools pointing out, this is a race to the bottom. What are you talking about? We're not all Eton. We're not the billionaire. Princes don't send their sons to some Yorkshire private school that costs 10 grand a year. 10 grand a year, that's a lot of money. But if you're earning 50 grand a year, you'd be like, okay, we'll go without, I won't buy a car or something. I'll send my kid to a private school. And, that's me being upwardly mobile and building generational wealth. And the Labour Party's like, oh, smash that down. You're not having that. And so I'm really resentful about this. I really hate this policy. But on the plus side, there are going to be billions more to Ukraine. Billions. It's the centre of Starmer's government.
Building houses for Somalis and Afghans.
So that's what the VAT rise is for, presumably.
No, the VAT rise for the school is, for the schools in particular, is to make sure that they can hire 6,500 new teachers for the foreign children who will be educated in British schools. That's why. That's literally the reason. We're building foreign people houses. We're going to be educating their children, and I'm going to be paying for it. Wonderful. No, this is just more money for the war in Ukraine. Because
so this will probably be like debt backed
100%
money printing. Great.
100%. Anyway, so what will the Labour Party do that's actually quite good? One of the few things is renationalising the railways, because we have simply the worst railways in Europe. And I will explain why in a second. Basically, by 2025 and into the 2030s, a load of the existing railway contracts after the privatisation of the Tories are going to be... Was it the Tories? No, it might have been under Labour, actually.
Sorry, what?
Was it Blair or the Tories who privatised the rails?
I can't remember exactly when it happened.
I think it might have been Blair.
It's more of a process, really, isn't it?
Yeah. But I can't remember. Maybe they bring it up in the article. But anyway, the rails were privatised and therefore sold off to a bunch of private companies. And we'll get on to who owns those in a second. And so they're going to bring in legislation that will just simplify the rail system, bring it all into public ownership. And actually, that is a good thing because we're getting screwed. You know why we're getting screwed? Guess who owns our railways? Oh, that's right, the Europeans. The Europeans own our railways. Why do we let our rivals and competitors in Europe own our goddamn railways, right? So the West Coast Main Line connecting London, Birmingham, Manchester and Glasgow are operated by the Italian state rail operator, not private, the state rail operator Trenitalia. I've used Italian trains. They're terrible, but ours are worse, right? The German state railway, Deutsche Bahn, operates 4 British railways, including the London Overground, the Grand Central Line to Sunderland. 7 UK railways are operated by partly owned Dutch State Railway, operated or partly operated by Dutch State Railway. I can't pronounce Nederlandse Spoorwegen, something like that, right? Including Merseyrail, ScotRail, and West Midlands Railway. And 7 railways are operated fully or partly by the French State Railway, including a bunch of other transports for Wales and Thameslink and stuff like that. So out of the 30 UK railways, 6 are owned and operated by private companies or British government authorities.
So
it wasn't privatised. It was given to
it was given to
one point, I think you have to say very quickly, because a lot of people out there, that our audience are sort of right-leaning, or they would say it's the idea that nationalising anything is sort of the policy of a socialist. But it's not necessarily the case, because it's, if you think about it, you either have something nationalised, controlled from Westminster or Whitehall, or the French own it, or the Chinese own it, like our steel. You either have a nationalised steel industry, or the Chinese own it.
Yeah.
Well, surely it's the lesser of two evils.
Exactly. To have it nationalised here.
It's still going to be run by a bunch of incompetents that might not still have our interests at heart in London. I'd rather that than Beijing or Paris. Though.
Sure, but it's literally the Germans, the Dutch, the Italians and the French who own our railways. But it's the state. Those states own our railways. So they're not private. Right? They're not privatised. They're nationalised.
It's bizarre, isn't it? It's perverse.
It's perverse. Just for other nations. No, we should bring them back. For what I would say are right-wing reasons. Not for left-wing reasons, no. Because don't like those foreigners having our industry. Right-wing reasons, okay? There is a good reason to do this. And
xenophobia for the win.
And I'm not even joking, right?
No,
they're exploiting us, right? We are paying the most expensive train journeys in all of Europe, right? So for comparable distances, in Germany, costs £9 to travel 120 miles from Berlin to Dresden, whereas a similar journey from London to Birmingham is £35. It's unbelievable. Like, to get from here to London is 50 quid. It's like, that's an hour.
Yeah.
That is unbelievable. Like, to go from Madrid to Barcelona is £53, whereas to get from the same distance from London to Edinburgh is £106. So we're being totally rinsed here. No, this absolutely should. And the final thing, just to close this off, is that for some reason the Conservatives decided to make it that you probably wouldn't get prosecuted for stealing less than £200 worth of goods. And the Labour Party are like, yeah, we're going to get rid of that because that's bonkers. It's like, yes, that is bonkers. I don't know why the Conservatives did it.
No, that's legitimately good.
Yeah,
I mean, credit where credit's due, even if it's one tiny bit of their policy programme, that is better. So surely
the Labour Party are going to do a bunch of stuff that's absolutely atrocious and will continue to ruin the country. But they will deport foreign criminals, return the boats to the continent, renationalise the railways so the foreigners don't get to control them, and make shoplifting a crime again. Thank God something good's happening.
I hope you appreciated that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, and if you want to see more of what we're up to, you can watch us have a lot of fun on Lads Hour. The most recent one is on our rejected YouTube video ideas, where we have a lot of fun. And if you want to see all of the other work we're doing, you can follow us on Twitter, and we post links to everything. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.